Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Lizard Brains podcast. I'm your host, DJ Alessandrini. I'm joined by my co-host, Tom O'Gorman. Tom, how are we doing?
Dude, I'm good. I'm in my new favorite sweatshirt, I think.
I need to get one.
Dunning-Kruger Hill Climb Association. I finally got it in the mail. I love it so much.
Yeah, that's a good joke for anybody who like people will see you out in the wild and they'll get it. They'll be like, I like that.
I meant to show my therapist the other day and I forgot because I thought he would think that's amusing.
Oh,
like a psychologist kind of minded person.
Yeah. What if they were like, what is that? Or you're like, crap, what am I spending money on?
Well, then we would go, I guess, true, yeah. But I'm okay. How are you?
I'm exhausted, Tom. This is the first week of my new job, and I'm drinking from a fire hose. There's a lot to learn. Just like anytime you start a new job, it's a lot, and you don't realize how many activities you had on autopilot at the last job where you like didn't have to think. But when everything is new, it is super exhausting. Like at the end of the day, you're just like, the brain doesn't want to brain. So if at some point during this podcast you catch my brain not braining, I'm sorry. We're doing our best.
Listener, we're gonna have an argument in the comments. What time mark do you think DJ's brain will stop braining?
At some point during this podcast, it will stop braining. So yesterday,
how much? Go ahead.
Oh, yesterday I did get to coach, like in my hotel room, and that like little bit of normacy was nice because it was like kind of it felt like things felt a little normal. It's like we're talking through things that we that I normally get to talk through, and I'm it's not everything is new. Like there was some stuff that felt same-ish, and that was actually like a nice break.
Yeah. That's something I've not thought about actually, is the being overwhelmed by just the quantity of new information. Maybe let me try to finish the thought. Like I'm painting my picture here. All of my work experience basically is starting from like ground up things that don't exist. Like we invented track night and we literally went to a racetrack and like made it up on the spot.
Yeah.
And then the same with the go-kart track. When I worked there, we literally built it from the ground up and we designed all the processes and stuff. I can't remember the last time I walked into a space other than that IMSA race. The IMSA race I told some disaster stories about, where I was expected to come in and meet the standard that's already been set. Like are you having to go through like what do they call it, like the bullet listed like processes to do things? When you write them out, standards, something with standards, I don't know. Yeah. Standard operating procedures. Are you having to like learn all that stuff?
Well, yes, I'm learning. Well, it's the position's a little more freestyle than I would think it is. Or maybe it's just maybe there is like a standard procedure and it's just they haven't even started explaining that to me yet because they're just like, just get used to the terminology and the acronyms and the lingo, right?
Yeah.
So
you feel like you're learning autocross classes.
Yeah. So maybe there is a standard operating procedure, but I think right now it's just learning the terminology and just the systems that are in play and other stuff like that. So, yeah, I contributed a little bit today for the first time. I wasn't a complete leech, though I probably, while having somebody check my work, probably slowed them down to the point where I probably negatively contributed. But I mean, that's how it is whenever you start a new job. You're going to be a leech for a while. So
yeah, that's what training's for.
Oh, the jobs, I'm a parts specialist at a big giant HVAC company called Daikin. So it's it will be full remote. It will give me more free time to chase the things that I want to chase. In theory, we'll see how that works out. But the team is good. The team, like the amount of experience on the team is wild. Like somebody has been with that company for 39 years, and then the average is probably it's probably above 15 years if you grab in the like overall team, and my direct team is 11 people. So it like the average is over 15 years, which is just bonkers of just the amount of experience that's in this specific position. So it's a little
That's
daunting.
a good sign.
Yeah, it's a good sign. Like, and you walk around the office, and I was being drug around and like introduced to people, and and I would say there's a majority of people have been there for over 10 years, which is a super good sign. And it's such a, I came from the last company, and you know, we had an office space, and it was maybe like 40, 50 cubicles, and my direct group was 3 cubicles, right? So like that's all that was um you know Hawk. But this new company it's hundreds if not thousands of cubicles. It's like such a giant company. And what's cool is how organized they are with everything. Just like the way they can get that many people to collectively like kind of work in the same direction is I'm finding that pretty interesting.
That's cool. Okay, the last serious question I have about this job.
Okay.
Have you floated Mario Kart yet? Do you already have the meeting set up on Mondays? Is it gonna have to change days? Are there any new ringers? Like, what's the situation there?
Yeah, I haven't really felt out the Mario Kart prospects yet.
Damn! You're on
There's
day
other,
3, come
yeah, there's
on!
other things going on. I think maybe at least 2 people would be probably in. Uh, and I haven't really felt out the rest of the group. I haven't honestly asked. I don't want to out myself as a Mario Kart player right away.
Yeah, that's coming in strong.
Yeah,
That's like
yeah.
showing up to grade school as a Pokemon kid, but, like, now instead of then.
Maybe.
It has to be less cool now, I don't know.
Okay, so
Anyway,
so
that's cool, I'm
Spaz in
glad
the
it's not
chat,
too bad.
who's one of the people that work there, he says more than 2, I can guarantee that. So
Hell yeah, and you get to play from the comfort of your own home once you work from home.
yeah, we'll have to exchange friend codes, and that's how we'll spend our lunch period.
I love it. Did you do motorsports this past weekend? No, you were flying. You were doing your new job, huh? Oh, we had our race.
Yeah, we had a race. I was like, we did something on Saturday. What was it? I can't remember.
I knew there was. Guys, our second Lizard Brains podcast endurance race, the 3 hours of Sebring, went off without a hitch. So much to the point that we even tried to throw in full course cautions to make things
But it
interesting, and
was too
everybody drove
clean.
so
It
clean
was too
that there were
clean.
no cautions.
I was
It
kind of
was so it was
annoyed.
really
I'm like,
good.
can somebody please biff it?
Yeah, it was so good. You won. Congrats
Thanks,
on one of
Tom.
the classes.
Yep.
Do you have it ready? Do you have it off the top of your head who won the other 2 classes? I know it was Diego Del Real, sorry, in TCR cars, and then
And
Hugh Dastine, Giovanni Romano won them
Romano.
twos.
Yeah, one of them twos. And I was trying to get together the like team entries that finished first, and then the lone entries that finished first. I know that in GT4 it was Kevin Zhu and Zach Rubin. They're the highest placing team entry. And I was in the process of figuring out the other ones, but I started to get a little motion sick on the airplane. Plus, I had the tiniest, Tom, it was the tiniest little tray table. And sometimes the person in front of me, I think his seat was broken. Sometimes he would like kind of lurch back a little bit, and it would start to fold my computer screen. So I gave up on it. I was like, ugh,
Yeah.
like it's going to wreck this laptop that I need for this week and next week.
And for some reason, the flight that you need to work on your laptop on is the one that they want to recline. Like people in front of me almost never recline, but if I need the desktop something, for some reason, that's the flight. Like,
I don't mind if they
push them back up.
recline. It's just to stay in one position so I can angle my screen
Yeah.
appropriately. But it was a very tight flight, so I didn't really have room to like put the laptop directly in front of me, so I kind of had it hanging half off, and I was getting a little uncomfortable. So I was meaning to get the team and loan entries, like what their placings were. And I have the Excel sheet. I just have to like finish it up to figure that out. But yeah, the race was super clean, and the stream was great. Tom, you did a great job, and so did Kyle. And I'm kind of kicking ourselves a little bit, where I wish we could have time to do another one. But I think if we did another one, like let's say it's in March at some time, the only way those events work is by doing them on the weekends. And by March, people are going to be driving real cars. Like people are going to be traveling to go do real stuff. And I just don't.
Including you, me, and Kyle.
Right, yeah, like I'm busy till the middle of March right now, and I haven't even looked for the next 2 weekends in March. So I'm not even. Yeah, I'm not sure how that would work. Like, so we have a tentative weekend for it's some weekend in June where there's like no like SCCA stuff going on. There isn't any Grid Life stuff or potentially NASA stuff. And so we might do something in the middle of summer. We're gonna call it the Save Your Money and Stay Home event, and we'll do something with a broadcasted race if Kyle's available. We didn't check the SRO schedule, so
That's all right. We'll figure it out. And if not, I mean, we still have a lot of sim racing action every single week. If you want to join the Discord, you can find how to join that stuff both in iRacing and Assetto Corsa. So even if we don't do like a big official stream thing, I think the sim community is still going to go straight. We'll go through the season.
Yeah, I'm sure those chats and activities will still be active. But I'm thinking like as far as like big events, I'm not sure if we can actually throw one and have the population that we will want. And shout out to everyone who donated to the streams. Both streams were fully paid for from your guys' donations. So that really entices Tom and I to keep throwing those events because it's not negatively impacting our finances to do so. So huge shout out to everyone who donated.
Thank you guys. But yeah, other than that, this weekend, I didn't do anything on Sunday, and you were flying. So I guess we don't have a lot of motorsports to catch up on. Huh?
I bought a car.
Oh, what'd you buy?
I
already know. Plot twist. I already know.
So me and Christine have been going on a lot of road trips, and the Chevy Bolt, as much as I love it, and I still love that car, it's not very good for road trips because it's a slow charging electric car. It's best at commutes, right? Well, with the new job, I'm not really going to be commuting because it's full remote. So Christine's going to be driving that car mostly, and I really won't be driving hardly anywhere during the week. And that means that the Corolla that we've had for 8 years is going to just be used for road trips. And we kind of don't like the Corolla for road trips. It's a little uncomfortable. It's kind of noisy. And so Christine, she bought a Mazda 3 and I get to use it.
Hell yeah. You love those cars.
I love Mazda 3s. They punch way above their weight for how nice they are and how reliable they are. And it's actually, Tom, it actually rotates on the brakes a little bit. I don't know that from the car that we bought because when I landed, my rental car was also a Mazda 3. So I was like, oh, let's go. Because you never know what your
That's the limit here.
Yeah, you never know what your rental's going to be. And when I walked up to a Mazda 3, I was like, okay, this is going to be fun.
That's a rare rental. Actually, chat, what's the coolest rental car you've ever had? I think mine is a Focus ST.
What? Really?
Manual. Other than a Camaro. I had a Camaro that made me buy a Camaro. What am I talking about? That was the coolest one.
This is like compact budget rental. This is like $34 a day, and I got a Mazda 3.
Right. I feel like there needs to be a separate segment in the market for like where the Civic and Mazda 3 specifically fall, because they are not in the same category as Hyundais and Kias and Toyotas and Nissans. Like those are rental car spec cars. There should be like a rental car economy in Car and Driver, and then there should be like the nice economy cars or whatever you want to call them. That like the Civic and the Mazda 3 are so far and beyond the tin can Corolla and like the rental cars you would think of, but they're in the same segment,
I do hear that the new Corollas drive pretty nice, but you're still gonna have the CVT. Like the Mazda doesn't have a CVT; it has like an actual like 6-speed transmission in it.
Right.
Any of those other economy cars, you're gonna have the CVT, which I've heard that the 1.5 turbo with the CVT with the Civic is like it's actually pretty enjoyable and good and whatever. But it's still a CVT. I'd rather have like a real transmission. I'd rather have a stick, but I mean it's Christine's car and it's a daily and it's supposed to be like the road trip mobile. So,
right. We just circled the drain real close to car guy territory. I apologize.
I don't have a Carlton button on this different podcast machine.
I almost asked and I remembered that. But we kind of thought we would just catch up on emails and questions that we've got in the Discord server because we don't really do emails anymore. It's mostly on Discord. Because we have a backlog of like kind of big questions that will probably take up some time.
I think I
Do
actually
you have anything else?
deleted.
Go
I
ahead.
think I actually deleted the email from the description that I like copy paste over every week. So yeah, if you want to write into the podcast, the Discord is the place to do it. You'll see a specific channel to make those inquiries and questions. And I did load up the email chime, except I have to remember not to yell emails because it's in the chime. So ready? Emails. There.
That's good.
I stole it from a previous episode because I was like, oh crap, I need it. So I like downloaded it and then clipped it.
Nicely done. All right, I'm trying to pick a good one to start with. Do you have this up already?
I'm pulling it up on my phone because my screen is occupied with being recorded.
Occupied?
Yeah. So Emilio asked earlier today, he goes, DJ, do you have a power ranking of sour cream brands?
Oh my God.
Emilio, I don't. I think the leader in sour cream technology is that Squeezy Pack sour cream. I think that's Daisy. So that's where I'm going to lean. Because let's be honest, all sour cream, it kind of tastes the same. I really haven't had sour cream where I'm like, this is good sour cream, this is bad sour cream. It's all good. It's all good sour cream. But the Squeeze Pack,
You don't discriminate?
I don't discriminate against sour cream. But the Squeezy Pack is the best way to have sour cream. You know how sour cream, let me explain for people that don't know. Maybe you don't dabble in the sour cream life, right? So
You mean dollop?
I wish I would have thought of that, dang it. So you know when it's like you haven't used sour cream in like 3 days. That's a rare occurrence in my house, but like every once in a while 3 days will go on by and you haven't used the sour cream. Well, you got like that moisture on the top. It's kind of gross, right? It's like a yellowy, goopy moisture on the top of the sour cream. Yeah, Phil calls it sour cream sweat. Thanks. That's gross. Now you're kind of ruining sour cream for me, but you're not, let's be honest. Anyways, that water stuff is kind of gross. But on the Squeezy, that water stuff just hangs out near the top. You never see it because the sour cream settles to the bottom. The water goes to the top. But the Squeezy happens from the bottom. So you get the purest, freshest sour cream you've ever had. And it's perfect every time.
I'm glad I know that now.
Yep.
I've never thought about that before, believe it or not.
Yeah, it's
Shocker.
It's super good. Whitney says that's called whey. And to that I say, no way.
Yes way. Okay, this is from Red Flag Garage. This is a good driving question. As a novice driver, I've been watching track videos and other drivers learn a new track or improve on an existing track. What are some good indicators to know what I'm watching? Know that I'm watching quality driving. If the driver is always entering or exiting a corner incorrectly, etc., how would I know? I love that question because I love watching in-car videos, but I cannot stand watching in-car videos now that I see if I watch someone be too far off where I know I'll be that I can't get any information from the video. But how do you learn that when you watch it? I've never really thought about that.
Like learn the track when you're watching somebody else driving, or
how do you know that when you're a newer driver, how do you look up in-car video and determine that driver is competent and worth studying versus the 90% of the videos that are like a Garmin capture and it's just someone driving?
Yeah. I have an idea of what I look for because I do look up videos of people driving a track.
Yeah.
I haven't seen before. I think
my first one is if there's any lifting and coasting before the braking. If there's any amount of like lifting off the throttle before the driver brakes, that's like an immediate DQ of a driver that's not competent enough for me to learn something from watching the video.
Yeah, I think you have to look for red flags, right? That's a red flag. Another red flag is if they're not using the full radius of a corner when they should be, right? That would be a red flag.
Okay, so I'm just gonna for the thought exercise, you watch a video of a really good driver at VIR, and they come out of turn one, and they go into the acceleration of turn two, and they don't use the whole track. You see how that could be like, oh, they didn't use the whole track. They don't know what they're doing for like a new driver.
So if you watch the
But I
whole
do-
lap
I
and
mean-
consistently they're not using the full
Yeah,
radius,
I agree with you. That's a really good indicator in general. Seeing the car go from all widths of the track, outside, inside, outside.
yeah,
I actually, so Phil just mentioned tire noise. I
Yep.
think tire noise is a big one.
yeah.
If I can't
100%.
hear the tires like ever once, and I can't see in the comments that it's like on Hoosiers or something, then I'm like, you should have a little noise.
Yeah, that you said about like the having a gap between the throttle and the brake. If there's corners that are pretty cut and dry where you should be dragging the brake all the way to the point where you get on power, and then when they're on power, they're actually leaving the corner, then that's an indication that they're doing a good job, right? If they're on the brakes and then they start to turn in and then they get half throttle and then they're half throttle to their like almost to track exit and then they're full throttle, that's a red flag, right? That maybe there's not as much to learn about this as I could otherwise.
Yep. And just in general, from the hands of the driver, I think I don't know that all of most in-car videos are trending away from showing the driver because of the Garmin stuff and everything.
Yeah, unfortunately. I wish
Being
Garmin
able to
would
see
come
the
out with
driver-
a video that, like, cool, you have the dash or whatever, but I wish they had a second input on the tablet to put behind.
Yeah.
I can't remember if it was PRI or SEMA. I think it was PRI. And I actually went over to the Garmin booth and asked them if they're coming out with like an update to that tablet, because it would be a huge plus if there was a second camera hookup or even an update to the camera where it doesn't just sit in the dash, but like maybe you can put it behind you, and then the aperture and the focus of the camera would be good for like not in the windshield. You know what I mean? So it's not like blown out and stuff like that. Because right now, the way it sits, the only real way to use a Garmin is by putting the camera in the windshield. So you don't get the inputs.
Right. That was my biggest complaint with it the first time, is how annoying having that system set up in the car is.
Yeah,
Because you have to have it set up. All the things have to be right. And it's like, oh my God, let me just turn it on and go like an aim.
Update, they're not currently working on anything. So
there is we're pivoting, but there's a product from Smarty Cam, I think, that has it's a 2-camera small device that I've been meaning to try to get my hands on and try it. If anybody's tried it, let us know. But it has a forward and rear facing camera that's meant to be mounted. Ooh, I forget if it's suction cup or if it's like a hard mount like a GoPro, but it's meant to capture both. And I wonder if there would be a way to use that to capture driver and windshield out.
isn't Smarty Cam just aim?
I think, and then it should do GPS that would pull into aim or something. Yeah.
So
Oh, not Smarty Cam. Who am I thinking of?
you're thinking of aim?
Race Cam. No, I'm not. I'm thinking of
The blue one?
Race Capture. Race Keeper. Race Keeper.
Raise Keeper. What is that?
It's another one of the data like device brands. We had to run them in the TCB cars back in the day, but this one's like a newer product.
Really, guys,
Anyway.
if somebody came out with a data and camera system in a car that was less than $1,000, like, you guys would freaking crush it. Like, you don't need it doesn't need to be a tablet, it doesn't need to be fancy, it doesn't need to be anything other than capture a speed distance trace and have camera. Like, I don't know what corners if cutting those other corners makes it like significantly cheaper, but there is definitely a market for a cheaper camera that gets the exposure proper in the car, that turns on when you turn the car on, and it can put like a speed distance trace to that video.
Yeah, I agree. The last thing, or to the original question of how to tell if as you're learning how to tell if the video is good, if the hands are too slow, and I don't know how to tell you too slow is too slow or what is too slow, but if the hands are like never making corrections and the hands are like very methodical, drivers who drive that way also tend to have a hard time turning past 90 degrees with their hands. So if you're watching somebody and you see like their hands feel too slow or they look really, really smooth, but they're never correcting and they're never turning past 90 degrees, they're probably not maximizing it. And I would watch out for that too.
That's not necessarily a bad video to watch out for though, like to watch and like learn the track.
Agreed.
Because they're like in general putting the car in the places that you probably want to put the car. They're just not putting it there at the limit of adhesion.
Yeah. Also, that goes to asking friends, like making friends and asking friends. You can kind of get an idea of what your car should run at any major racetrack that you're going to at this point. Like, there's so much technology and information available. But I hope that helps.
Should we do some of these questions from Jay DeVries?
Yeah, go for it. Jay had a bunch of really good questions one day,
Yeah.
just like went ham.
Yeah, he just went ham, and I was like, "Holy crap, this could be a Jay episode." Okay, we answered this one about the wealth. Okay, Jay asked, should motorsports prioritize entertainment value over purity of competition? And where is the line between sport and spectacle? So he has some points here where it says, is it more important to create exciting, unpredictable races that keep the audience engaged, even if that means artificial drama? Basically like safety car deployments, DRS zones, BOP, or should motorsports stay true to its competitive roots where the best engineering and driving talent naturally rise to the top? Even if that results in dominant teams and quote unquote boring races. Yeah, what do you think, Tom?
Where is the line? I mean, motorsports can't exist if it's not an entertainment function. So it has to have that to some point, or people are going to stop paying for it, and it's going to have to either get a lot cheaper, or we're going to become horse people. Non-derogatory. Because of that, though, I think what drives me nuts. Okay, from a driver's perspective, I hate synthetic competition. I hate rewards weight, and I hate like random stuff. I believe that there's like a non-random way to create fair competition under all circumstances. And I think people kind of lose the plot on how they create that sometimes. For example, in my opinion, I would prefer using grid life as an example. I would rather see like a progressive invert throughout the 4 races in GLTC rather than a random one at the end. Because the random one at the end is not necessarily always equal amongst all weekends and whatever. And it's super fun. Those are my favorite races. But if it was like race 2 had the top 4 inverted, and then race 3 had the top 6, and then race 4 had the top 8, that's like a predictable pattern that makes it harder for the drivers to consistently win, but without like hampering them with a heavy car. And I hated rewards weight in World Challenge too. It just feels unfair. Like, I'm better than you, and you can't keep up, so you're just slowing me down. I don't like that. But in general, I like predictable wrenches thrown in. Like, I love the idea of like a progressive invert throughout a multi-race weekend, because you can kind of know what to expect, and it's never that crazy. It's always the same. I'm trying to think of a similar thing. Maybe like the NASCAR chase. I don't really know how that works, but I don't think I like that.
Well, that's
supposed to be for entertainment.
That's kind of in line with like the predictable, like you know exactly what you're
Yeah.
hitting. I think in real life, like the yellow flags is kind of like a little bit of an unpredictable, like you know, like a little bit of a wrench in like the current competition of what's happening and stuff like
Yeah.
that. And you'll see that shake up Formula One races and you know other various race series. But I like this question because at the heart of racing is the competition. And as a spectator, if it's not competitive and it is just full on meme fest, then it's not very interesting because you're like, it's like if everyone's driving the exact same car and somebody catches a lucky break and they win, I don't find that very interesting. Even if that like particular individual is like super likable and you're happy that they got a win. As a competitor who enjoys watching competition, to me, let me gather my thoughts. To me, watching any kind of competition is an opportunity to watch the human spirit. And to me, the most compelling competitions to watch is where that human spirit shines through. The drive, the you know, the constant push for being better than you were before. And if that leads, like for instance, and this is going to be an unpopular opinion, but when Hamilton was winning like 4 or 5 championships in a row, and he was like fending off somebody like every single time, and somehow he'd always come out on top. To me, that was super compelling and super interesting, because to be on top of your game for that long, when you have so many people behind you that are hungry,
Yeah.
they're hungry for that world championship, but you're the one that keeps coming out on top. To me, that's really compelling. Now, if the sport changes so that person can't win, I don't like that. I don't like that because that's not a compelling story of the human experience, right? Because that's what I'm tuning in for, is I want to watch that human experience. I want to watch the 24 hours of some race, and somebody is having the driver of their life to the point where they're like drooling on themselves, and they're like setting laps that like are beyond themselves. And the commentators catch that, and they're talking about it, and he's chasing down third or second place, or maybe even first or whatever. And then they have a nice, hard, clean battle without interference for the win. And then you get to see that like human emotion in the car of somebody who's worked so hard to be in that position, to someday have that dream come true, and you get to see that. To me, that's what's compelling about racing, not the crashes or the whatever, right? It's that human experience, and living vicariously through somebody else's experience and relating it to my own, right? That's the compelling part of bonus sports, I think.
Yeah. Jay mentioned something in the question about the engineering behind it versus the true, like, well, he didn't say true competitive roots, but should it stay true to competitive roots where best engineering and driving talent rise to the top, even if that creates boring racing? That's kind of what you just addressed, that if it's still a compelling human story, then it could be. I often forget about the engineering part, and I tend to think that like the best racing happens when the top speeds and min speeds of the cars over the lap are the biggest. So like big braking distance, mistakes, that kind of stuff. I think that tends to make better racing than making cars faster and faster and faster all the time.
Yeah.
But I also forget that people like the engineering side, and I just don't really care.
Yeah, I think
Like too
we're
much.
I think we're kind of in the same boat. Like I care so much more about the driving than the thing that they're actually driving in.
Andy used to check me on that every once in a while if I was bitching about something. He's like, some people really like to work on their cars and like make their cars better. Every once in a while, he'd have to remind me. Like, oh yeah, I guess.
Yeah, I recognize that those people exist, and the engineering is cool, and like ideally to me, like the pinnacle of motorsports would not be Formula One. It would be like NASCARs on like a road course, or like a Trans Am, or like some kind of touring car thing, or something like that, where like big aero doesn't like change how the cars interact with each other.
Right.
I think like the best forms of racing is when you're in first place, and just because of like you're punching a hole in the air, that creates a slight advantage for the car behind them, because that will keep the racing like somewhat close. Unfortunately, in like Formula One and other racing series where like aero is a big part of it, generally if you have clean air, then you have an advantage. So I think that play kind of messes up racing a little bit, where if you're in front and you have an advantage, then your advantages kind of compound. To me, you're less likely to get that human experience than if the person who set the fastest quality time is up front, and because they're up front, they have an advantage.
Sure. I guess as I read the question one last time, like artificial drama, like safety car, competition cautions, DRS zones, balance of performance. I kind of react negatively to all those things for the reason you're describing. It feels like they're trying too hard to make it better instead of actually figure out why it's not better. So that's kind of why I think the harder that, I mean, that's why it has to be an entertainment product because of the way that it works. But
the BOP thing is tough though, because if
that one makes the most sense of those things.
Yeah, if you have all these different manufacturers, like how is a Mustang shaped car going to have a chance against like a McLaren or whatever, right? Like it's just inherently going to have better aero properties, even if it's like not even close to the factory car underneath, right? Like you need to have some kind of balance of performance in that to like equal the class out, right?
Yeah. I think IMSA's got it the best right now, even though the only downside with IMSA is the length of the cautions because of how many systems they put in place to keep it entertaining. But when it's green, I think IMSA is the best on-track product across like even multiple series, to be honest. But
I don't know.
because every time it goes full course means it's like back up the field, multi-class cycles through the pit lane, class splits, all this stuff. It takes 30 minutes the first time it goes yellow, which is not entertaining. But every time it goes back to green, you get like a GLTC level sprint race every single time.
Yeah.
What were you gonna say?
Well, I was gonna say, remember those international TCR races at Mid Ohio?
True.
Those are pretty good.
And those didn't, I mean, they had rewards weight, I guess. But they all, no, they don't have rewards weight. They invert the top 10. So it's just an invert and they get good racing.
So maybe instead of reward weight, you just do inverts?
I would try a progressive invert style if I was running like a sprint series doing multiple races.
I think
just to see.
Yeah, I think for club racing that creates like a risk of more incidents though.
Maybe, but if it's only like the top 4, 6, 8,
yeah,
it should be all
the top of the class should be fine with that. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. Anyway, I think if it starts to lose the competition to the point where it's like gimmicks taking away abilities to do well, that's where it loses me.
Yes.
That's kind of what we settled on.
Like I think like DRS is kind of a gimmick. Where like it just has less aero drag, and it's because what you're trying to do is you're trying to get rid of that advantage that the car in front has. But I don't know. I'm kind of against aero. I don't think. I think the less aero cars have the better. And maybe someday we'll get to that in motorsports where we just kind of get back to like when we truly adopt our final form and become horse people. Like, do we just ditch aero and just stick to like the racing that's the best?
That's why I brought up the engineering point, because some people don't. Probably a lot of people don't care if about the racing. A lot of people don't care as much about the driving as they do the car, and a lot of people are 50-50. So you get this pull towards like not de-engineering the car.
I hear that,
I don't know.
But
I wish they would.
At some point, engineering has went past what is like physically possible for a human to endure in the car.
Right.
So it's all like hampered. It's not like peak engineering on some level. Like that car doesn't exist. It kind of existed a little bit with that. What was it? The 919 Porsche Evo thing.
Yeah.
That P1 car, right?
Yeah.
That kind of existed, but even then, like it wasn't as fast as it could be. It would be kind of cool to have like the fastest possible car that's survivable in like a crash. Like that's the only metric is like whatever speed it gets at the end of the straight at Spa. If it loses brakes, the driver has to survive. So they like do the test where they put like an egg in like the driver's seat and like just fly it into a wall. And if the egg survives, it passes like any inspection or whatever.
We just pull the most basic race series. Does it pass like 6th grade science? That's all we got to figure out. Can you drop an egg off a balcony?
Yeah.
Cool, let's go racing.
Yeah. Hey,
no, I do think that like we're talking like high level stuff, but even if you look at like Mustang Challenge, the new one that came out last year,
yeah,
the cars are too samey. Like it's not that good at racing because they end up just kind of driving around in straight lines, meaning trains, because the brakes are too good and the grip is too good. And like even with a car that should be like a pony car that's like that, it's still it's going to the point of like, why are these cars engineered so extremely? But I get it. Like it's not that. I think that's just a byproduct of real cars getting so good. It's inevitable. People are going to keep engineering them better.
Right. I mean, look, if you think about like, and this is a good segue into the next question, but if you think back into like the 60s and 70s when like racing was its best or whatever, there was races in like Formula One where the leader literally lapped the entire field. Like, was that great racing? I don't know.
Or like, there's a video I watched on the turbo era of Formula One, which was like late 70s to early 90s, maybe somewhere in that range. Most of the 80s. I think 1986, there was a 40% finish rate across the whole field the entire season.
Can you imagine watching
that? Like, the 80s are like the pinnacle of turbo cars, right? Imagine watching races where only 40% of the cars finish every single time. It was probably horrible racing.
I think part of the problem is as modern society has gotten so good at entertaining all of us all the time, that maybe watching racing isn't as exciting as it used to be because we have engineered other ways to extract dopamine out of your brain when you're staring at your little hand screen phone thing and you're in like for hours a day. Right? So
And
does
also,
does
yeah.
racing actually keep up with like what is entertaining the modern brain?
Then also we're fighting probably an uphill battle of like it's only in the last century that cars are normal. No, not even 75 years that cars are normal. So like we're multi generations into cars being normal. So it's harder to keep them being cool. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I bet there's some sociology level to that where because people in the 80s didn't grow up around cars like that. They grew up from cars in the 40s and 50s. It was like mind boggling. Whereas now we've grown around cars and it's really hard to understand like a Formula One car is like the same thing I do basically.
It's kind of like
Hey.
it's kind of like when phones like smartphones like Apple had the like, you know, the first modern type of phone. And then other people are coming out with those phones and every 2 years it was like a giant leap in like technology, right? So back in like the 60s, 70s, 80s, there were giant leaps in technology as far as cars. So cars were just exciting because it was like a progressive technology that was major changes and things were happening all the time. What major things are happening now?
I was thinking about that the other day because I had a crazy thought. Maybe this can be another topic for another day. But I was thinking, what? I don't know how this came to my mind. What original Gran Turismo track best represents each era of Formula One? Because I was on this tear. I was on this tear about like Gran Turismo tracks in Assetto Corsa, and I was watching these 70s and 80s F1 documentaries, and I'm just like, I was like just sitting there thinking like, what? Okay, so this comes from that. Oh, I forget what I was going to say. Damn, I just shared an embarrassing reason, and I don't remember why I shared it.
Okay, Tom, I was like, where are you going with
Oh,
this?
oh,
Okay,
because
here
I
we
was
go,
thinking
everyone.
through, like, when's the last time Formula One really changed shapes? Okay, it was really hard for me to start deciding, like, what track feels like a 2000s track versus a 2020 track. Because I was going, like, real nerdy. I had it all figured out. But, yeah, it hasn't changed shapes that much. NASCAR hasn't changed shapes that much. Prototypes are probably the most recent, like, wow factor, because they went from ugly things, like Daytona prototypes and, like, kind of weirdly shaped Audi TDI things to like now they're all kind of sexy and fast and cool.
Yeah.
Anyway, that was weird. I just did a big old boomerang and came back to my thought.
I'm lost.
Thank you for the time.
Guys, I think this is the moment where DJ's brain stops braining.
You didn't understand what I just said?
No, I think my brain's turned off now.
That's okay. Hey, we're gonna break up Jay's big thing questions. This one's from last September, but we've been saving it.
Okay.
It's from our friend Bowie Gray, and he asked, "What do you wish someone had told you before your first one lap of America?" And I'm pretty sure he asked because he's doing it this year, or at least was planning on it.
Okay.
I have mine. Do you have yours?
No,
I know
go
for
ahead.
sure.
Yeah, go ahead.
The biggest thing that I struggled with was the like it is what it is of one lap. Because it is basically Brock's show. And there were days on my first one lap, like the first day, the second road course we went to, we showed up and there was oil dry all over the track, and we qualified in the top group. So we went out on the fully oil dried Eagles Canyon, and we were like 15 seconds, 17 seconds a lap off our dry laps for 3 laps in a row, which is like horrible for one lap. That's like a total disaster. And I got out, I was so pissed. I was so upset because we practiced and I was supposed to try to win. And we had the pace to win, and we qualified in the group, and you just put me out on oil dry because the track's too lazy. Like, I was so spun up. And that's like, that is what it is with one lap. And it happened again a little bit later where they actually held out the lunch break an extra 45 minutes to make sure it started raining before the first group went out so that it was raining for all the groups. And again, I was just like, I couldn't wrap my head around the like, it is what it is with one lap because they're just going to make choices like that. Or it is like, there's so little control over the biggest picture that you just have to roll with that kind of stuff. So you may have, and the last part of it is like the drag racing has gotten canceled all 4 years that I've been. So it's like just things like that, whether they're positive or negative, it switches up like that. You just got to roll with it. And I struggled with that my first year.
I
What about you?
So you kind of warned me about all that stuff, which I think that might have caught me off guard. So I think that is something that you should definitely think about, is where you kind of just have to roll with it. Honestly, it's if you think about it, it's like a summer camp when you were a kid, except it's in cars and racetracks. Like that's what One Lap is. It's like an adult summer camp. Um, so at summer camp, if you were supposed to go kayaking, but somebody stole all the kayaks last night, so you can't go kayaking, you're not going to throw a tantrum about it. You're like, okay, I guess we're going to finger paint instead. Like, whatever, right?
Right. Yeah.
Like that's kind of how it is. Um, it it's I think for me and Tom, it's easy to get caught up in the competition of it, but when you're there and you're doing it, I mean, especially for my first one lap, and I hope I get to keep this. I hope I don't get like spoiled. But I was just thankful to even be there, right? So
Yeah.
I think that's kind of where I was at. So with your advice and just the sheer luckiness on my end to even be able to participate in it, I think that's why little change ups in the format of the competition or whatever didn't really matter that much. What I will say is part of the fun for One Lap is no matter what the curveball is that's thrown at you, all you can do is your best with whatever is given to you. So whether it's raining on the track or it's drying conditions or there's oil dry or whatever, if you just maximize whatever your hand you're dealt, and that's how you base your performance of that competition, wherever you end up. If you're like, I maximize what I had. It could be, I've never been to this racetrack before, and my co-driver who was supposed to drive it is sick from the Mexican food we had the night before. So now I have to drive it. It's
Yeah.
like you're just going with what you're dealt. Like maybe you finish way farther down than you would have otherwise because you didn't get a chance to recon the lap. You didn't even get a chance to watch laps before because you just jumped in the car and you went, right? This didn't happen. I'm just bringing it up as a random example. You shouldn't be upset if you didn't go as fast as all these other teams who maybe were more prepared or even like got to know where like the left and right hand turns were. All you can do is your best with whatever you got when you get in the car. Now, you should try to up whatever your best is going to be and then achieve whatever that is. You don't just roll in with like zero preparation or anything and then just go like, well, DJ on the Lizard Brains podcast said if I do my best, I did a great job, right? It's whatever your best is at that moment. And if you can change whatever your best is, either beforehand or more likely after, then cool. But in that moment, all you can do is your best. And I think that's what you should judge yourself on is, did I do my best in that particular competition for what I had? Because at the end of the day, I think that's all we can do. If somebody shows up with a ZR1, like the new C8 ZR1 this year, and it's dry, and they're going 186 miles an hour on the back straight at Road Atlanta or VIR or whatever racetrack that ZR1 went 186 miles an hour, and they win, but I drove my best. Who cares? I drove my best, right?
Yep.
Good for you for having a ZR1. What a cool car.
Right.
Yeah.
Or a 992 turbo, as it were.
Yeah.
Totally agree with that. And the last thing I'll say is try to communicate. There's like a 2-layer thing that'll make day-to-day life easier on One Lap, I think. Having a bit of an expectation of your own routine so that you're not like just surprised on day 3, like you have no rhythm, you're thrown off and you're in a completely different part of the country and all this. Like if you can go in with a little bit of a rhythm, just to say, like on the stops, these are the kind of snacks I'm going to get, and like just have a little bit of a control on creating some normalcy and communicating what you need from your co-driver and what they need for you. For like Steve, the first year we had a trailer and we had all, this is what we do, and it was I do certain things and he does certain things, and like we had jobs basically, and he assigned all that, and it made it so easy for me.
Mm-hmm.
And then Salil and I worked it out in our practice pretty much for the most part what our flow was, but down to like who's going to get out and pee first every stop, or like just have a little bit of a rhythm to that kind of stuff helps a lot with your like coexisting. And don't drink too much the first night. Save it till the end.
I would argue don't drink at all
Well,
during
if you're
the
gonna do it, I think most of the people are gonna show up at one lap, and but
well,
it sucks on the front end.
this is my argument for not drinking during one lap. Is part of it is like you might feel fine for the first 3 days, but once you start falling behind on like your food and your water intake and your sleep, it's really hard to recover. So that's why I would say just don't drink alcohol during one lap. I know people are going to do that, but it's going to make you sleep worse. It's going to not hydrate you as much. It's literally going to detract from your performance. So if you're concerned about your performance at all, don't have a drink
Until the last night.
unless
That's an obligatory hangout night, as far as I'm concerned. If you get back to the end and you don't come hang out for the night, come on.
unless you're on the skid pad the next day. Come on, you got to be serious. This is serious business here. The skid pad. I think I could do the skid pad hungover. Me, I don't drink at all. If I was hungover, I think the performance at the skid pad would be exactly the same.
I have 100% done the skid pad hungover, and I can guarantee you that is true.
Yeah. I remember when I finished the skid pad last year, and I was like, didn't feel like there's anything I could have done there to change the results. Yeah.
Yep. Kind of is what it is.
Yep.
I hope that helps, Gooey, and I hope you're still coming this year. All right, do you want to tackle another one of these biggies, or
the J one? Yeah, I wanted to talk about the era of safety innovations. It kind of goes on what we were already talking about, how cars have gotten so much better than they used to be.
Yeah. Okay.
So
you reading it, me?
Yeah, I can read it. So in an era of this is from Jay DeVries again. In an era of safety innovations, has motorsports lost some of the raw danger and heroism that once defined it? There was a time when motorsports were considered one of the most dangerous professions, where drivers were seen as gladiators risking their lives every time they got behind the wheel. Today, safety innovations like the Halo and F1, the Hans device, improved crash structures, and virtual safety cars have dramatically reduced fatalities. Has making motorsports safer also made it less thrilling for the fans? Do audiences inherently crave danger in racing? Do modern drivers get the same level of respect as legends such as Senna, Lauda, or Villeneuve? He picked that one just because I can't read that name. What? I'd say it, Tom, please. Villeneuve. Yeah, it's, you know what? It's because you kind of like trip over your tongue on purpose while saying that word, Villeneuve.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why I can't do it.
I preferred Villeneuve. That used to be your go-to.
Yeah, Villeneuve. Yeah, that was. But I know that's wrong, and I'm trying to be serious here, Tom O'Gorman. Who race in an era where crashes were often fatal. With the push to more safety, is there a risk of over-sanitizing the sport to the point where the challenge and excitement are diminished? On the other hand, should we ever glorify danger in motorsports? Where is the balance between excitement and responsibility? If you can make it where motorsports was 100% safe and nobody ever died, I think it would be a better product. I don't think the risk of people dying adds to it at all. And that's part of the reason why back in the 70s, they made such a push for safety, is because it was actually impacting the ratings because people weren't tuning in to watch it. That's what actually drove safety to be improved, is because people weren't tuning in to watch it because their favorite drivers were dying.
You know that for sure?
If that's not the case, then I made it up in my own brain so convincingly that I think it's true.
I only ask because I've been watching so many of these documentaries, maybe not on the economics of Formula One, but I'd never quite heard that. I didn't know that they were starting to basically like boycott the races, the drivers and the teams. And there was one race, that Spanish track I told you about. The drivers weren't going to race, and they were paddocked in the middle of this park in Barcelona, and they locked everybody in. They locked all the equipment, all the cars, the series, locked everything in, and there was going to be like a lawsuit if the drivers didn't race, because they're all contractually bound to participate. And it was getting so dangerous, they were like, we're not even going to do this. So drivers were quitting races in protest and all this stuff. But it sounds perfectly reasonable if it's just like,
Well, maybe the ratings went down because the drivers were actually like.
That's what I'm saying. Is
Yeah,
the turmoil
maybe
either way? It was
yeah.
causing problems. But I if I hadn't been if this hadn't been so fresh, I would probably agree with you. But there was a period for sure that every single driver understood that they could die when they got in that car, and I don't think that happens at all right now. So I do think that adds a little bit to the gladiator personality of the driver, but I also think that's why the drivers are more. I almost said senile. What's the word I want? Clean, sterile, more sterile now because they're not as. I don't know. I do think of those drivers at the time as like massive personalities, and I don't now necessarily as much. Maybe that's just rose-colored glasses.
Even with modern motorsports, there's still a risk. The risk of dying is relatively low. You're probably more likely to die driving to work than dying in a motorsports accident. But the risk of injury and the sense of danger, I feel like, is still there. Like I don't feel like invincible when I'm in a car.
No, I would say my sense of self-preservation kicks in probably way more than people would think.
Yeah. So there's still, and we talk about this on the show, but it's we're not, me and Tom are never turning into corners just like wondering what's gonna happen. Like we basically know what's gonna happen, right? So there's not the heroism in that, but there is, especially in like wheel-to-wheel racing, there is instances where it's like a calculated risk, and it's not 100% guaranteed that everything is going to be awesome, because a lot of times you're depending on the other person to have like a level of accuracy that you're predicting that they'll have, right? And so that's where the calculated risk comes in. So even if to me, I've like watching grassroots motorsports like the SCCA runoffs or like Grid Life or whatever, that's more interesting racing. And it's not because they're more likely to get like hurt or injured or whatever, but because the consequences are so much more. If somebody messes up or something happens and somebody loses their car, that could be the end of them racing for years, because we don't have just unlimited budgets. We don't have teams that could rebuild the car overnight, right? So I think like, yeah, it's safer, but the stakes are still there in terms of like, if racing is somebody's life and that car is crashed, damaged, wrecked, or whatever in a way where they can't participate in the thing that is the most important thing in their life, you're basically watching somebody die.
Yeah. You're not wrong.
Because they can't race.
I have that. Okay, so I have like a little bit of a different spin on this. I think that there has been maybe some loss in the glamour because of a combination of like the distance from the activity. So, and I say that because as I'm watching older races, the fans are always closer to the track. There's always way more of them closer to the track in more dangerous areas. And there's often like, they didn't go to like full course yellow every time a car like broke down. There's like cars on the side of the road on fire being fought with fire hoses across the racing line, and the guys are just driving through it. Like they just kept going. And there were like fans that would hop the fence and try to flip cars over if drivers got injured. You know, like it was like just a closer, more intimate experience in my hindsight watching this stuff in the past, whether it was like Group C or whether it was Formula One or whatever. And then the other part of that is the way it's broadcast and the way the track looks and things like that. Like as we've gotten the like paved expanses instead of gravel traps and the more like streety style circuits and stuff like that, the distance from the cars, capturing the speed, being able to stand near them with they're physically being not looking like they're driving through a parking lot. Like when you watch a race at COTA versus you watch a race at Road America, it's like such a difference. And tracks are trending more towards that Road America to the COTA style. And then the last thing is like paddocks being closed off from people.
Mm-hmm.
In those days, I mean, there were fewer people that could go to races, obviously, but if you watch like videos from even into the 90s, it's like dudes with their shirts off working on cars the way they do at Grid Life, and it's like Formula One. Like the professionalism and the barriers put up because of that, like that progress. I think all three of those things have distanced fans in a way that it doesn't make it less safe, or like the people are less like gladiators. I just think there are more and more either physical walls, pay walls, or like guardrails put up on being a motorsports fan.
To add to that, the cars that are out on track are so more and more and more removed from what you would normally experience in your day-to-day life. Like the cars that you'll see on the road, even like the GT3 cars are like, that's basically nothing on that car is the same, essentially.
Yeah.
GT4 cars, a little bit, right? That's why I think that's more interesting.
I agree. There was a huge difference in my like social media engagement when I switched from racing a TCR car to an S2000, and it went up by a lot. Like people didn't care about the TCR car as a car, even though it sort of looked like a Civic. Everybody loved the S2000, and it was a pile. I'm like, why do you care about this car? I hate this car.
Yeah, just look at Katil. But even then though, like Katil's like what is this, like at this point it's a 36-year-old car that Katil's racing. There's a huge following for like older 90s Civics, but I think and newer cars become less and less interesting to like turn into a race car. But on some level, if the cars that you're watching being driven at a very high level are cars that you could potentially own, realistically, you know, they're modified, but not modified to the point where like they're not even relatable. I think that's more compelling for the person watching than these crazy cars that like a prototype. What even is that, right? How does somebody relate to that with them driving to work, or them?
I wonder when they started calling. When did they start calling cars prototypes? Like we would say that word and we know exactly what we're talking about. Was it 50s, 60s? Who cares? I guess.
Yeah, I guess.
You can't just say to like. I can't even say that to my mom. Like if I were to be racing a prototype, I think if I said that to her, I don't know that she could fully picture. And she's like been to the races and watched them.
Like a prototype is so purpose built that yeah, it's a car in some capacity, but like it's not relatable.
No.
It's more relatable to the person who karts on the weekend than the person that's likes a curvy road.
Yep, for sure. So I guess I think we agree that motorsports being safer is not worse for motorsports. But I think some of the ways they try to make it safer influence it a little bit. For like other reasons though.
Yeah.
It's not that people might die. It's that it's that there's less access or there's more distance from the track or there's more whatever.
Yeah, but I don't think, and maybe I'm just soft on gore or something, but I just don't think watching somebody where somebody could get like seriously hurt is entertaining. Like when I watch fail videos, if it seems like the particular video that I'm watching, it seems like where people are getting hurt, I don't want to watch that video. I turn that off. I don't want to watch people get hurt.
I have no idea how people watch videos like that.
Yeah. And maybe I'm soft. Sorry, everyone. I don't want to watch people get hurt, but
now little kids in a glass maze running into the glass, hilarious. Love it. But they're fine.
They're fine.
I don't want to watch some kid on a skateboard break his arm.
Yeah, and then like stand up and his arm's like twisted backwards and I'm just like squirming. Yeah.
No.
Yeah, I don't want to watch that. So I don't think I think maybe what Jay was saying in his question is the stakes of it. But I think you can create stakes with a compelling broadcast. Can explain the stakes of the race, the stakes of financial hurt or championship ramifications. Like you can create stakes like that. That's what makes it interesting. But the stakes of somebody's life, that I don't think that should ever be incorporated into the entertainment. And Spaz says you can create stakes with a grill too, that is true. You can do that.
Oh, I just had a picture of like the racetrack being like a Mario Kart racetrack grill.
What, like the
it should be a level,
like one of the music levels where you're like driving on a keyboard, but now you're driving on a grill because there's some stakes.
Yeah, I think I'm today. My trend is sharing the first layer that shouldn't be said. It's a little bit of a pattern today.
Oh my goodness.
Do you want to talk about cars again, or do you want to talk about Jay's last long question?
We could talk about cars, I guess.
All right, Gavin G asked a week ago, if you were to have 45K to buy a trackable streetcar, what would you choose? And then a long discussion happened.
What were some of the people saying? I didn't see the discussion.
I mean, the first, it didn't need to go past the first one. Someone said an SS1LE Camaro, which is the obvious correct answer. Let's see. Camaro's objectively right, but Elise's Alpha 4Cs and Caymans are in the budget. I didn't know that.
I don't think you can track like with the prep and stuff that you need. Maybe a Cayman would be like a maybe I'm blanking on a 981, so like the generation before the most recent generation. I don't think those had any major issues.
I think that's what our WRL car was. Yes, but like it was certain engines were worse than others. But someone else said 996 turbo. Terrible choice, I think.
No.
Sorry, Doug. That would be so expensive. C6 Z06 is in that range. I think C5 C6 is also a reasonable answer.
I think it is.
3-liter Supra is in here.
You could do like a GR86, like a new one, and then throw all the like reliability stuff and suspension and aero for 45 probably.
And honestly, unless the time is a limitation, probably do a lot more events.
Yeah.
Because the difference in cost of running those kinds of cars, massive. I think a GR86 would be a great answer. I don't think I would get an MX-5 for that budget. I would get a Camaro or something like that first.
I think the Miata would be fun, but I don't see it being the transmission's still like the weak link. Like you'd still have to be dealing with that. Though for 45K, maybe you get like a couple year old ND Miata, and then I know they have like adapter plates to put like an NC Miata transmission in there instead, and that will be far more reliable than the ND Miata transmission. So you could do that, and then you could probably have something a little bit more reliable. I probably would just go with the GR86, honestly.
Yeah, the other reason I said not a Miata, but yes, GR86 is just because the barriers to entry for the Miata to get to where it should be to be fun versus the GR86, I think is a lot more. Like you don't get as much power. It might still drive, like it doesn't drive slow, but you get more power. You have to deal with the hardtop problem potentially. You have to deal with the car being like literally the softest car that's ever been made. Like you're not going to want to leave it like dragging door handles. But I think the GR you can do like the literal track basics and have a much nicer experience.
What about like a spec E46?
Are those under 45?
Could you get?
It says trackable street car, by the way.
Oh, trackable street car. Okay, I was starting to get in the race cars.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I would go with the GR.
If you like front-wheel drive, I think a Civic Si would be fine. Civic Type R is getting too expensive at that point.
Yeah.
But I think GR86 or Camaro.
Yeah.
Those are the...
And Camaros drive really nice. So, and they'll be reliable enough.
And you don't have to get the top level. Like I had a base SS that was obviously modified, but it was also like still the stock engine and stock transmission and stock, not diff. But anyway, I drove on the street. It was great.
Yeah, you still had the stock brakes. Like you had different brake pads, but you had the stock brakes on the car.
That's what I would do. Carlton, any thoughts? Oh, Carlton's not with us. Never mind.
Sorry, Carlton's on vacation. He's where would a car guy go for vacation, Tom?
Depends on the time of year. It would either be like the Barrett Jackson auction in Scottsdale or maybe like Pebble Beach.
Jake says he's visiting the Corvette Museum.
Corvette Museum is 100% like that's a car guy vacation.
Yeah. No, he's at some car show or something. He's at like a car show like across the country.
Got it. Cool.
Yeah, some obscure one. It's like about like Jeeps or something. He's at like the Duck show or something.
Duck Fest, and it's a Jeep meet.
Yeah, and it's a big
I hope
Jeep
that
meet.
exists.
That probably absolutely exists.
Sim racing question. Phil Jew asked. I said that wrong. I'm sorry, Phil. Good car that will help trail braking practice in iRacing. Not the Miata or GR86. I'm tired of them. DJ, you're the pro. We had user submitted question answers. F4 Porsche Cup on fixed setup. Those are the two that people responded with. What do you think?
I think people get hung up on the term trail braking because really you're just guiding the weight around the edge of the car, and I think any of the cars in iRacing will do that. So my answer to that is whatever car you find the most enjoyable, that one.
Or like the 5 most enjoyable and all of them.
Yeah,
You
that
know?
works too.
I agree with you. I'm trying to think, what would he not like about those two cars? The GR86 has that weird tire sidewall model where it like snaps over steers, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the Miata, what is it? Pushy now? I don't even know.
No, the Miata's fine. It's just it's kind of slow and you can't outrun somebody with just pace because the draft will always keep them in play. So I could see somebody
Well,
getting tired of that.
he said he's tired of them. That's why. Okay. I agree with you.
Yeah,
I think try.
GT4.
Honestly, like look through the list of cars you have and drive something for fun. Like the last time I went and just drove the roof all-wheel drive because I own that was like very fun, and it's so different, and but it's still moving the weight around the outside of the car, or the late model stock, or a street stock, or a insert whatever here. Just look through your little list of cars. There's a bunch of them that are free now, right? Like you could go get the old legacy version of some car.
Either free or like $3 or whatever.
Yeah, I think just like let your curiosity pick a car for you and work on it.
Ivan asked GT3. I don't think the GT3 drives enough. Like Phil drives in real life. He's driving cars to like cement good habits for real life. I don't think the GT3 cars in iRacing are close enough to anything that we're going to drive in real life.
Yeah. And to reiterate, the question was about trail braking, but the reality is, how do I work on transitioning off the brake as I enter the corner?
Yes.
Yes, that's called trail braking, but think of it as blending, and then work on it from there.
Or think
We're going to
about it-
destigmatize trail braking.
Yeah, trail braking isn't real.
Merch idea.
What?
Something about trail braking is not
Okay,
real.
hold on. We could spitball it right now. Trail braking is the hoax.
Those professional driver shirts and professionals crossed out? We could
Yeah.
do like trail braking, good braking, or like trail braking and just cross the trail out.
Yeah.
There's something here.
Yeah, there is something here. It's not here right now because my brain stopped braining, but I'll think of it right when I wake up at like 6:30 tomorrow morning. Tom, I got it.
Yeah, hell yeah.
Yeah.
That'll work on it all day. How long have we been going?
Hour and 12.
Good chunk of questions. You want to do any more?
I'm kind of spent. It could be a shorter episode, honestly, Tom.
I'm down with that. What are you doing this weekend?
I'm going to Sebring, and I get to drive with Peter in his GT3 RS. I've never gotten to drive Sebring before, so I'm super pumped. It's only for Saturday because I need to get on a plane and fly back to Minnesota to finish up my onboard training. But it's cool that I get to throw myself at the new gig, and then I go to Florida for a nice little reset, and then I come back and continue to throw myself at it.
That's so cool. You're literally going from training in Minneapolis to a racetrack in Florida and then back to training in Minneapolis.
Tom, it is so cold here. You would not believe it. I woke up yesterday. Listen, this is how cold it is. You think it's cold. Look, you lived in Wisconsin, whatever. You might have a story similar to this, okay? Because it's basically like the same latitude. I jumped in my Mazda 3 rental car. My hotel is less than a mile from the office that I'm working at. I could probably walk there if it wasn't negative 16 degrees. I cracked my Red Bull, took a sip of it, walked outside, went, oh my God, it's way too cold to sip anything cold. I put it in the cup holder. I drove 5 minutes to the office. By then, the heated seats were kind of warming me up a little bit. I'm like, I'm a little early. I'm going to sit here and sip my Red Bull and catch up on Discord. When I went to grab my Red Bull, it was frozen and I couldn't drink it.
Holy cow.
It was less than 5 minutes away and it was frozen. It wasn't like frozen solid, but it was frozen enough where I couldn't get liquid out of it.
Just a slushy on top? Yeah. I'm trying to think if I can't remember any specific cold days. The only thing that I noticed that when I moved back to Ohio from Wisconsin, I'm curious, is it like gray up there right now, or is it like blue and clear?
It's sunny.
Sky.
It's so sunny.
That's how Wisconsin was. It was clear and blue and crisp all the time. There were some gray days, but in Ohio, everything's gray.
Yeah,
and I would way rather take the minus 20 from Ohio, like with the blue skies than what we get for sure.
No, dude.
No, you.
I don't see that many older people up here, and I think it's because the cold has killed them all off. Like it
They
is
stay inside.
brutal, dude. It's brutal. I feel it in my chest when I'm outside. It's so cold, and I'm 36, and I'm relatively. I would like to think that I'm healthy, but like it is so cold that I think when you get to a certain age, you're like, if I don't move away from here, this will kill me.
Maybe they all moved to Arizona, I think.
Yeah, Ivan says they all migrated to Florida. Actually, in the office,
No, that's New Yorkers and New Jersey people.
No. In the office, they've been talking about like a couple of people who have retired here and there. It does seem like they all went to Florida, so there might be some truth to that.
Maybe. I forget what I was going to say. This weekend, I'm also going to a track. It's my first event of the year.
Woohoo!
How many? You're on event number 4?
No, this will be 2. I didn't.
You did the ice cross. You did the autocross.
I didn't count the ice cross because I only did like 3 runs at 15 miles an hour and then just drove home.
Oh, right. Well, I'm driving this weekend with Fields Auto Works. Have you seen their new Scioto coupe?
No.
It looks okay. I'm going to put a picture in it while I describe. It's basically kind of a mashup, stylized version of like a 60s Ford GT, 60s Ferrari prototype, 60s.
Where are you driving?
Porsche. I'm driving at Homestead, Miami. It's like a vintage car weekend, but they're going down there because they know
the same area.
I think they're like 3 hours apart, but yeah.
What are you doing on Sunday?
Flying home.
What time?
We already talked about it. So this is the first time the car is ever going on track.
I fly out at 2. What time do you fly out on Sunday?
Like 7 p.m. You know Miami, you're flying into Orlando, right?
Mm-hmm. I have no idea where anything is in Florida.
Yeah, they're not close to each other.
It's funny. We only live 2 hours from each other. What? We're going to be in the same state across the country. We should hang out.
Yeah. Oops, I didn't copy correctly. Okay, so stylistically, it's kind of that style. So it's a really low slung, like 2-seat sports car. It's got an LS7, I believe, in it that was making 700 horsepower in the previous car it came out of. And the car with a full tank and without me in it makes is 1,800 pounds.
Whoa!
So
dude, it looks rad.
Will be crazy. We are starting on a 20% throttle tune, I believe he said. And then we're maybe going to up it, but we already had this, like, it's the first time out, good impressions, low expectations. It'll probably break. We probably will be done before Sunday's over. Like, it's a pretty transparent, like, let's just go show it off the first time. And they were gracious enough to invite me to drive it, I guess.
Cool. Good for you.
So I'm going to be driving in a very cool car, being very aware that it is a home-built car. I don't want to crash it.
It looks gnarly. That thing looks pretty cool. Is it? So I'm guessing. I mean, obviously, I'm looking at it a little bit closer. So the engine's right behind you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's pretty wild to climb in. It's got the gull wing doors. I'll have a full update next week. I also was I don't know if I was the first, but I was one of the first to drive the Cardinal as well. And I went over to their shop and drove it before it had any body work, and like the floor pan fell out from underneath it because it was so fresh. And like they just set it there to make sure that it stayed.
Mm-hmm.
And I drove it on racetrack. I think I was maybe the first to drive it on racetrack, and it had like no sway bars, no windshield, no nothing. It was just like this rainy day in Mid-Ohio. And now this is maybe 2017, 2018 when they first started. I most recently drove the same cars updated over that 6-year period, and it's crazy how good they've gotten from like literally building a car out of a completely bespoke chassis that's like made up.
What are the
so
chances?
I'm expecting what? Go ahead.
What are the chances, Tom? 2026 one lap Lizard Brain team in whatever that thing is called.
Honestly, if we got it paid for, probably very high. I don't know. I mean, I'll give you an update right now. The story I was just telling is to say maybe this car will be amazing in 5 years. Maybe it'll be amazing tomorrow. I really don't know. But it's the first time out for it.
With Tom McGorman's help, I expect it ready by next May. Let's go.
Oh, yeah. If I have to go work on it myself.
No, don't let Tom. God. If Tom is holding a wrench, run away from that car.
Yeah. But I'm excited. So that's all weekend. And then I fly back Sunday night. Yeah.
Okay. Man. All right. Cool. Guys, it's February whatever. And the season's already started. I'm excited. Ooh,
oh, yeah.
Ooh. All right.
I fist bumped.
You
Good
fist pumped, and I made
audio
the noise for
content.
you because I was like, nobody's seeing this, so I'm gonna make the monkey noise for some reason.
Appreciate you.
All right, I think I remember what button closes out the podcast. Are you ready, Tom?
I'm ready. I was gonna try to make some joke about staying warm, but I think I don't have it. So I love you here and hope you win. Yeah, he said I'm clear. This is my new favorite hat. I think it's still enabled.